We've got 10 viewers. 10 whole viewers.
Come on.
Okay, hey, welcome everybody. It is Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. That means it is time for Sci-Fi Distilled. And welcome back, Mary Beth, of course. And welcome, Captain Phil. And welcome, Dave. And Emma. Thank you. I had to read your name because I already forgot your name because that's how horrible I am. So we are going to talk tonight about foreign
Don't
film.
you feel welcome?
It was on there. No, I'm sorry. That's just me. Don't take any offense.
She's been to every Ticonderoga we've ever had.
I'm terrible with names. I'm horrible. What's your name again? I can't even remember. Mary something?
Mary something.
I don't know. So anyway, sorry. So we're going to talk about foreign films and how they're different from what we're used to seeing here in North America. You say North America because, Canada's kind of the same as far as culturally very similar. But before we do that, we're going to have some news.
Little news. Not too much, just a little bit of news tonight. A lot of, Doctor Who is dominating the news feeds this evening because they dropped a new trailer for their 60th anniversary special, giving us a great look at Neil Patrick Harris as one of the very few Americans who have joined that cast. He joins Eric Roberts, Andrew Garfield, Ben Browder, and of course John Barrowman, and a few others as being the few Americans that have jumped into the Doctor Who world. Foundation season 2 will start July 14th on Apple TV. That means I need to hurry up and catch up to season 1. I know you said that was pretty good, Rizzo. Is it worth watching?
Yeah, it was. The thing with Foundation TV show versus Foundation novel is they're very different. Very overly, the story's similar. Character names are the same, but characters are very different. They just took the names and really changed the characters around.
They do that.
So if you are a huge fan of the original Asimov Foundation, you might not really appreciate what they did. If you don't really have never read the book, you'll be fine with it, I think.
Okay. Fair enough.
So
fair enough.
I'd like to see where they're going to go with it because, like I said, if it was pretty ambitious to do it as a TV show.
Yeah, that is incredibly ambitious, but they said it was pretty good. So
it was pretty good. I liked it, and I liked the original book. So, the thing with the book is it doesn't have a lot. There's like very little action in it. It's kind of like kind of like Starship Troopers. Then you see Starship Troopers, the movie, and kind of the same.
Well, like we were talking about with Bicentennial Man, all of Asimov's books are puzzle books. In this case, there's like the psychohistory puzzle book.
Right.
Yeah, the psychohistory. Yeah.
They do talk a lot about psychohistory. That is still a backbone of the story.
Yeah, they can't get around that. Yeah,
no, right. They can't get around that. They can't get around why the Foundation's there and all that. But like I said, I think what people were really upset was they took a lot of the main characters, just took their names and like made them completely different characters. Yeah. And I think it's like, I don't know why they did that other than to make familiarity of the names, but whatever.
Whatever.
It's all right.
Moving on.
Before you move on, let me just jump back to Doctor Who. What character does Neil Patrick Harris play?
We don't know yet.
Oh, okay.
We don't know yet. You can go check out the trailer. I don't know what he's doing. I think he's a bad guy.
But he's got to be the master. He's going
to be Dr. Horrible.
Master. Or he's going to be Dr.
Horrible.
He would make a great master. He'd perfect.
Yeah, he would make a good master. He probably would. Yeah.
As long as he suits up.
Yeah, he's going to be big rubber gloves and the goggle. Oh no, that's Dr. Horrible.
Moving on, theater kids everywhere rejoice. Wicked is set to be released in theaters November 27, 2024. And a second installment will come Christmas 2025. Wicked first premiered on Broadway in 2003. This film version is going to star Ariana Grande, Jeff Goldblum, Michelle Yeoh, and Bowen Yang. I love Wicked. I like Popular. I like to sing it. Okay, moving on. Blink and you'll miss it. The latest Strange New Worlds trailer gives us a microsecond of Tawny Newsome and Jack Quaid as Mariner and Boimler live action. They're standing on the transporter behind Pike and Baby Drummer. I don't know her name. Noonien Sing Song. I don't know.
Forever to be Baby
The
Drummer.
Lower Deck live action crossover.
Yes.
Live action crossover. They're in their Lower Decks uniforms, and those guys are in their regular Strange New Worlds uniforms. This is believed to be episode 7, called Those Old Scientists, which is a callback to Lower Decks. It is directed by Jonathan Frakes. Strange New Worlds premieres June 15th on Paramount Plus. And this is our conversation starter tonight. I was looking at, the people got screen grabs of this because it really is just like blink and you miss it. It's like a second of footage. And so people got the screen grab, and I'm reading all the comments, and most people are really pumped, and I'm really pumped, and I think it's going to be fun. But there were people who were like, oh, everything's a joke now. Star Trek is just a big joke now, and Roddenberry's rolling over in his grave. And
there's always going to be people
Star
like
Trek
that.
is-
I mean,
and people.
the old adage, you can please some of the people some of the time.
Some of the
You can't
time.
please
So-
all the people all the time.
And people were like reminding him there was plenty of humor in TOS. Like there was tons.
There
I was going to
was.
say they never heard of Tribbles, A Piece
Yeah,
of the
right?
Action,
Yeah.
iMud,
Star Trek 4.
So here's
Yeah.
the question, guys: is there room?
Star Trek 5. Oh, sorry. That wasn't meant to be a joke. That's how I took it.
Is there room for humor in Star Trek?
feel your
or have they
pain,
taken
Phil.
it too far? And what do you think about this
No, I think as long
crossover?
as they keep it to like one episode a season at them, you know what I'm saying? As long as it doesn't be like, all right, we know Lower Decks, that's the whole point, is to be funny, but they stuck in the fairy tale episode
But
and
it's funny in a
Strange New
smart
Worlds.
way.
They've
Yeah, they
done
did
each
that fairy tale
one has
episode.
kind of had a more humorous episode, you know what I'm saying, or a more lighthearted episode.
There were funny moments in Picard.
Yeah, I mean
that was largely
there'll always be a
heavy drama.
a joke here and there. I don't see
Yeah.
why that's such an issue.
But
Yeah,
the
I
thing
mean,
is,
I
Lower
don't-
Decks to me
who
is
cares?
smart.
People get
Like
upset
it's
about stuff like
smart
that.
humor because, like, someone was like, "Oh my god, animation! They're just screaming at each other. They scream at each other all the time, and they're all moving at like 3
See,
times
and it's
a day."
interesting. That was my first impression of Lower Decks.
That
It's
they're
like
just
all
screaming
they're
at
doing is yelling all the time. But then when you
The
kind of
Mariner
get
does seem to
I
yell a
did-
lot.
At first, my first impression was kind of a little eye rolly, like they're trying to be too much like Rick and Morty. But I
and
think
Morty yells a
I have
lot.
changed.
Not bad,
I
too.
quickly changed when I watched more of them. That it really is.
because it's
It's
smart.
huge fan
It's so
service.
smart. You have to know. You have to
You
know.
have to
Star
know. If you
Trek.
don't know Star Trek,
get
you're right. I
these
could see.
jokes.
Yeah, there are deep cuts in there.
It's deep cuts.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's in any decent animated show. You can be moved to tears watching Bob's Burgers. When the kid with the bunny ears says, "I want to take over the
Yes.
restaurant for you, Dad." And I'm like,
That
"Oh my
one-
God!"
Do you remember Futurama when Fry got frozen and his
Yeah.
dog waited for him? That episode
Yeah.
made me sob. So yes, there's room for emotion in animation, but is there room for humor in Star Trek?
Of course.
absolutely. There
The
has to
funniest
be.
character in all of Star Trek is Mr. Spock. He's hilarious, and he's hilarious, and he's hilarious in his Vulcan way. He's George,
It's a
and the
dry
rest of the
humor.
cast. The rest of the cast is Gracie. He's George, and it's his reaction. He's got that Jack Benny.
Well, I'm sure
thing
people would
going on,
disagree with you on that one, Phil. But
I know. I'm right.
I
I'm
think
totally
in
right.
general, stuff that is really intended to be funny, that they've had humor in Star Trek, as we said, going back to the
Puddle.
so the fact that they're sticking in, and they did the shorts in Disco. You remember the one with the Tribble one in Disco?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
was
that
quite
was one
funny,
of the
actually.
best Disco episodes, and it was only 15 minutes long.
Yeah.
So
It was she
I
was
still
a bad
haven't finished. I
the
still haven't
captain
finished
was a
this.
bad
though.
captain, but the episode was quite funny.
yeah, the episode was quite funny. So I mean, they're always going to stick humor, and humor's always, people like it. I think overall the majority of Star Trek fans are happy with it. Just because there's a few trolly people on Twitter or whatever, they're always going to be those people. So Twitter's
Twitter's still a thing, Michael.
What's that?
Are people still on Twitter?
I don't know. I never got on Twitter.
Mary
So
Beth is on
I'm
Twitter.
just throwing that out as a social media commentary.
These comments were actually on the Book of Faces, but you find the same
So it's
comments.
all people in their 40s or older.
It's all grumpy old white guys.
Because apparently, like all the younger generation, Emma, weigh in, please.
Yeah, Emma, what do you
get on
think?
Facebook.
No,
I ended up reading some of the
I've never
Star
had a
Trek.
Facebook account. Like you avoid it like the plague. I feel at my age.
Like my daughter, she's 21. And everything is TikTok and this Be Real or something. I don't know. It's another.
Yeah, I think the main social media is Instagram. Like if you had to be like
Instagram,
comparable to
right.
Facebook, like that's where
yeah,
you'll
she does. She's on Facebook, but she has an account. But she does. Everything's on the other platforms.
I don't know. TikTok to me is like the Enterprise trying to understand the message V'ger was sending it in Star Trek: The Motion Picture. I'm like,
They
I
figured it
really
out.
don't understand this.
No, you know what it is?
It's China's
It's Darmok.
Yeah,
More
it really
Darmok.
is.
You know what?
It really
It is
is.
like Darmok.
Okay.
Darmok and Gelada
We do have a
Tanagra,
topic for
or
is that the news?
who was
Is that the news? Is that all we
Yes,
have?
that's the news.
That's
What are we
just-
Okay, I
doing
just say we do
tonight?
have a topic for
Rolling
tonight.
floor.
As much as
Missy,
I'd love to
yes.
talk about the topic.
Missy is Darmok.
Okay, we've
Okay,
solved social media.
Foreign films, TV, and films. I know I've watched several recent
Do we have a
TV
drink
shows.
tonight, Rizzo?
What's that?
Do we
Oh,
have
we
a
do.
drink?
You're right. Thank you. I
Let's
went
do
kind
it.
of old school. It's kind of a classic. This is an old
Oh, yeah.
one. Singapore Sling.
Nice.
So I thought it was kind of, had Singapore in it. It's kind of foreign, so why not? Just gin, Benedictine, Grand Marnier, cherry liqueur, pineapple juice,
It's a weird mix with Grand Marnier.
lime, and some bitters. Yeah, I bet you it's probably pretty good, actually. Never had one, but hey, somebody make it. Let me know. So it's on the website if you want to write that
All
down.
right. In we go.
Anyway.
Here we go. Wading in.
So yeah, and I've noticed watching because like on Netflix that like there's been some really popular films, particularly from Korea. Squid Game for one
Train to
thing
Busan.
has been very popular, but
Yes.
again was not made for American or
Just won an
North
Oscar.
American audiences. So I thought it'd be a good idea. Actually, I think it was Mary Beth's idea. I don't want to take credit. To talk about some of these
I'll
and
take
some of
the
the
blame.
differences and what we liked about it and what we don't like about them. So I'm gonna start with Mary Beth. So what have you watched and what do you like?
I've watched tons of stuff. I watched recently is because that'll be what's freshest in my mind. Wandering Earth, which I want to talk about. I watched Troll Hunter, which was pretty Norwegian and pretty interesting. And I watched I guess it's Planète Sauvage in French, but it's Fantastic Planet in English. And they're all
That's
weird.
Oh,
They're all weird and different.
Yeah.
And I
Fantastic
can see
Planet,
if you
that's
guys watch
very
that,
old.
I'll watch another one. I watch tons of them. Guys, we don't realize it, but we've been watching foreign sci-fi since we were little kids. If you ever watched Godzilla movies when you were a little kid,
Sure.
you were watching foreign
of
sci-fi.
course.
Yep.
Let's talk about Wandering Earth, because Wandering Earth is Chinese, and it squarely falls into the massive, huge, epic blockbuster. That's
It's
what
a
that is.
Jerry Bruckheimer Chinese film.
It's a Jerry Bruckheimer, Michael Bay. Like it's everyone goes Chinese. Oh my god, it was epic. The story was epic. Telling the story had to be epic, and then the film itself was epic. Like it was just insanely. And they hit everything that a Hollywood blockbuster hits, beat for beat for beat. Famous stars, check. Massive action sequences,
Yep.
check. No, they weren't optimistic. They killed people.
No. That was the least foreign film you could have chosen.
That's a great way to put it. It was the least foreign. It was easily recognizable as a Hollywood blockbuster. Like anyone watching would be like, "Yeah, I've seen this before.
Yeah.
I know what's happening now." Here we go. Oh, and it had the funny comic sidekick Relief, who happened to be the one American in the movie. they had him. Like, yeah, it was insane. It was huge. It was massive. It was special effect city. And Wandering Earth 2, I'm told, is even bigger. So
I will say one nice thing about it. You got to see the fleet of worlds, like from the Larry Niven books. You know, the puppeteers, they move their entire planet. It's like, wow, somebody could actually move a planet.
Move the
Oh,
planet.
you know,
Yeah.
that's how you do
Instead
it.
of move the planet, they build underground cities. Only a certain percentage of people are saved down in the cities. Everybody else perishes when they just fire up engines and move the planet. Like it's unbelievable story.
Yeah.
And it's written by the same guy that did The Three Body Problem, which is a really popular sci-fi book right now. And I bet you dollars to donuts that thing becomes a movie soon too.
I haven't seen it, but it sounds like the old movie Gorath to me, where they use rockets to move the Earth out of the way of a planet.
I didn't know this concept. You know what? I didn't even know this concept had been done before.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, what a unique concept. They move the planet with engines. And there's a bunch of engines on one side to move it. And then there's engines all around the various circumferences to like rotate it. So there's stabilization and stuff. Like the author had it all worked out. Like,
yeah, I mean, the concept, like I said, goes back to the 1970s. Larry Niven was writing about it, back then, but I haven't really seen it on the screen. But you say Gorath?
Yeah, Gorath.
Yeah, I think it was called Gorath. I think it's a Japanese film, and I think it was sort of like a When Worlds Collide scenario. Okay. And they used rockets to move the Earth out of the way of the planet coming to hit us. So, yeah.
Interesting that they decided to move the planet instead of moving what was coming. Normally, when an asteroid or something, we try to destroy or move that out of the way.
What's inbound. This was in this movie. The sun the sun was gonna go supernova or something. But when I say epic, I mean they knew the sun would go supernova like in a couple hundred years, so they started working then to like do whatever it is they were going to do.
It has to be a foreign film because if it was an American film, they would have done it the week before it was due to happen.
But that is kind of again like
Steve Tyler to sing a song for it.
If you remember, if you guys that read Ringworld, the whole point of the puppeteers moving was because there was a massive explosion at the center of the galaxy that was going to take thousands, if not millions, of years to get to the outer rings. But the puppeteers were moving. They were leaving to get a safe distance. So that's kind of like a similar concept where they know this is coming.
Now I believe the science, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the science now is that every galaxy has a supermassive black hole at the center of it.
Sure, why not?
So Larry can go back and fix that while he's still alive.
Well,
rewrite. Write an addendum. So anyway, of all the movies we want to talk about tonight, this will be the most recognizable to American eyes. This has the least amount of differences aside of the fact that least amount of differences.
Okay.
The one thing I would say is this was government approved, Chinese government approved. They like to have their stamp on.
Oh yes, so there was no negativity on the Chinese.
Negativity, yeah. So
they're pretty strict about that. So all right, so we'll come back to you for another one.
Sure.
But we'll go down to Dave and Emma, the Lafredo group.
Okay.
What have you guys been watching?
Well, we were talking about Visions before before we started, and there's a lot of really neat things in the Star Wars Visions set of shorts. A lot of really neat, takes on things, and you can sort of see the different styles. I've been watching. I think what brought me in first, we were talking about RRR. So I could say something about that. How about you? Anything?
I was really just going to talk about Visions because that's something I learned like 2 weeks ago. And I watched part of season 1 and I thought it was really cool, or volume 1 technically. But then I watched volume 2 with all of my friends because they were really excited about it, even though like I had never heard of it before. But I just thought it was amazing. Like just the amount, like just the range of animation styles and all of the cultural influences in each one. Like they were all so different, but like I liked it more than volume 1 because I just think it had such like a good balance of everything. I just thought the stories and the art were amazing in all of them. So yeah.
And what specifically made them different from American animation?
Well, I think again, one thing you could really see was like the cultural influence, like in the animation made by a Chilean studio. Like one of my friends who is Chilean, he was talking about how like it was even the name that they gave one of the characters was something that went back in mythology, and it almost like got him to tears just because it was something so close to him, even though none of us really connected it with it in that way, versus another one made by an Irish studio. Like, I just thought that one was the most beautiful just because of the way they painted the landscapes and the way that the characters moved. I don't know. They were just all so different in
was
ways.
that the little singing girl?
No, that one was different.
Oh.
I think you missed the Irish one, but
Okay.
yeah. They just, yeah.
One thing I just want to point out that you mentioned early on it was that it was something that you weren't aware of until recently, and I think that is so true for so many of these films that we as Americans and North Americans, we are so isolated from the rest of the world in a lot of ways. We're such an island when it comes to this stuff. But I think with things like Netflix and stuff pulling in and other streaming services and YouTube and everything else, we're getting more and more exposed to stuff
Because they
outside
carry
of our little
international.
bubble and finding out that there really is some good stuff. Now, true, we've been seeing things like Godzilla, and
Anime, a
everything,
lot of anime,
you know,
has
and
made
anime
it
and stuff
here.
like that. That's true, but I think some of their more,
Like the Korean
less
movie.
popular films, we never see
Yeah,
them.
like there was a Korean movie I wanted to watch called "I'm a Cyborg, but That's Okay," and because she was in a mental hospital and she thought she was a cyborg, and I really wanted to watch it, but I couldn't find it. But yeah, those kinds of things are starting to creep into Netflix. I should have said Wandering Earth is on Netflix. The Vision stuff is all on Disney Plus. In case anyone out there wants to go check these movies out as we're talking about them.
Well, yeah, I just want to add that just to emphasize that point. We're talking about RRR, and I was like, oh, it's a Bollywood film. No, it's not. It's a Telugu language film, which is all of southern India.
Yeah.
And Bollywood is all hidden.
would
And
I
there's
have
like
known
a
that?
dozen different schools all going.
I've never seen that film, but I've seen clips of it, and it is like so over the top.
Oh, it is. But my point is just that there's so much variety there that we only just get this thin crust
And
of
again,
stuff that we call, that's Bollywood.
Excellent point.
Again, as Americans, and I think we are very, we look at India as India.
Yeah, but it's not. It's
just like within the United States, we have
diverse.
so subtle differences in culture. They have more than just subtle because they have very different religions. That, but you're right. There's totally different parts of that country that are different language and everything. So yeah. So are you guys set? I'm going to go over to Phil.
Yeah, go to Phil. We'll loop back around. We can keep talking all night.
He'll come around again.
This is like a thing, an exercise in self-editing, because I've seen a lot of stuff, and I decided to not do TV series, even though there are some TV series. I decided to try to edit out anything from the UK because it's very close.
We do
to
get
the
a lot of
United States.
We do get a lot of UK stuff. You're right.
But my preliminary list was Mirai, What We Do in the Shadows, The Host, Melancholia, and The Quiet Earth.
Melancholia.
And, yes, and then my top
What We Do
three.
Shadows. That's New Zealand.
Well, exactly. So I found myself centered around The Host, The Quiet Earth, and Mirai, and I think I'll touch on The Quiet Earth first, but I definitely want to talk about Mirai before we close down, and hopefully I'll have a chance to do that.
We'll go around again.
All right, good. But The Quiet Earth is a New Zealand film based on a New Zealand science fiction book, whereas a man wakes up and he's the last man on Earth, and he doesn't know what happened, and he's a scientist and he's working on this global project, and somehow everything vanished, and it sort of reveals itself what's happening, and he does find other survivors, and the thing they have in common is they all died at the point of this event that made everybody else vanish. So other people one guy was being killed, he was being drowned, the main character himself was committing suicide, and I forget about the females, there's two guys and a gal for the tension, of course. And you really don't, it's like a really 2001 type idea where you're trying to figure it out as you're going along, and what is this about? And it just sort of brings you in, and it really has that sense of wonder. It isn't like, oh, this is the Seven Samurai in space, or oh, this is Moby Dick, in space, that sort of thing. This is like a really unique and original thing, and that's what makes it good science fiction. This is pre Lord of the Rings, New Zealand film, and the very end, I'll tell you the ending. Um, the scientist who was committing suicide because he didn't want to be involved in this project figures out that it's all going to go kablooey unless he like breaks this chain reaction that's happening in his lab. We just lost Michael. I'm in charge now.
Keep going.
I'm the captain now.
Yeah, Alexander Haig.
He went off to watch the movie. So what happens is the very, very ending, because this is a film that doesn't have a lot of budget in it, so there's not a lot of special effects. But the very, very ending, he blows up, the lab where he's in to keep this thing from happening. While the other two, the other man, by the way, happens to be a Maori, so that was kind of interesting too. That thrown in there for a foreign idea, and he ends up like on a beach, alone, and he's looking at a ringed planet. He's in another world, and it looked sort of like, it looked like just like this amazing painting, and he's looking at this ringed planet coming up over the horizon. He doesn't know where he is, and that's where the film ends. So it's not your typical science fiction story where it has a set of enemies, a set resolution, and against all odds. It's like this is a puzzle, and this man is trapped inside of it, and at the end of it, he finds himself in a bigger puzzle, and that's where it ends. The Quiet Earth from New Zealand.
Yeah. So there's no resolution. I kind of love that. I love a good open ending that leaves you.
How would you say this is kind of different than what it would have been if you think, like, let's say an American studio?
American studio would have brought everybody back. You would have found out what happened back on. Where
there would have been the sequel.
Yeah. Well, there never was a sequel. This was made in the 1980s.
Right. I'm just saying they would have had the sequel, so you find out, like they did in 2001 and all the other ones. They had.
I mean, and then it goes into a lot of like he sort of loses his mind. So he's like going nuts for a while. He's wearing dresses, because he's going crazy, and he doesn't turn to alcohol. He goes into a church and he like shoots the living daylights out of a crucifix, hanging up. He goes in the Catholic church, and screaming in there. So it's all these little moments, and then of course Eve, the woman shows up, and that changes the whole dynamic. And then the Maori man shows up, and then now three's a crowd.
It almost sounds like a Twilight Zone episode.
Or it sounds like Zifu Zachariah.
It sounds like, yeah.
But,
yeah, a little bit like that. Yeah. But the thing that makes it cool is like it's unique, and I don't think that sort of film. It reminds you of the filmmaking they had in the 70s when they made Silent Running.
Okay.
That sort of not the actual story, but that sort of theme of filmmaking, that sort of idea, like this is how we're going to do things. So I believe it's on. I did a search on Roku. It's easy to find. I believe it's on Tubi or one of those channels like that. So you can find The Quiet Earth.
Interesting. So I watched a couple of films, TV shows. I've talked about Dark, and I will talk about Dark later if we have time. But I've talked about it already on this show, just briefly, which is a time travel based. It's German. But I did recently watch The Silent Sea on Netflix, which was Korean, and it is a space. It's supposed to be kind of a thriller, but again, it kind of I think something gets lost in translation. I firmly believe that it's a language barrier, because some of the dialogue seems really corny to me. But I'm sure if you are Korean and listening to it in Korean, it probably doesn't seem as corny, if that makes any sense.
Were you watching it dubbed or subtitled?
No, I was watching it with the subtitles. No,
Okay.
was I? No, I take it. I can't remember now. I think it was subtitles. I know Dark was definitely subtitled. No,
Okay.
Dark was definitely dubbed. I take it back. Anyway, but the point is I'm trying to make is their pacing was much slower than what I would have think an American studio would have done. The basic of storyline is it's the somewhat near future, some kind of disaster happened, whether it was our own environmental issue or something else, caused us to lose most of our water. So water is being rationed to the world. And if you are kind of special person, you get different levels of how much water you get. There was a moon base that was doing research, I guess, to find water. and there was some disaster there, and it was closed for 10 years. And then they're going to send these. Now, why they waited, I don't know. I don't remember the reasoning, but they send this group of astronauts to this base, which is massive, of course, for a moon base, to investigate what went wrong and actually come back with some samples. And then it starts right out kind of, you think it's going to be more action packed because they crash, and then they don't really explain why they crash. Like something just goes wrong with their ship and they crash, but they all survive. They get into the thing, but they find out that water there's a moon water, and the water, when it reacts with living tissue, starts to multiply, so that if you get this stuff in your system, you drown. Like you just start spewing water out of everywhere because it
sounds like a Doctor Who episode.
There was a Doctor Who episode where the water was alive and doing
yeah.
This, and of course, then they find one survivor which is a little girl who has kind of mutated, and at the very end, not to give away spoilers, she goes out the airlock and just walks on the moon, and she's just standing there without a suit on. So it's some kind of weird evolutionary thing happened with her. So it's a very kind of odd movie. There's some kind of intrigue because there's the typical big corporation that told some of their people to do certain things that they didn't tell the rest of the crew was going on. Very kind of HAL 9000. People start getting murdered. And then of course the water's killing them. So it's about 10 episodes, but it feels like it's much longer than 10 episodes because it's just what I've been getting from TV shows is they just don't seem to be as tight as, and I think it's because I firmly believe that it's American audiences just have a shorter attention span. You got to have that. Come on,
very true.
Story moving. Let's go. What's the next thing that's going to happen?
Yeah.
I don't want to see them all just staring at each other. Let's go. So that's kind of what this film. I don't really not recommend it. If it's something you think you'd be interested in watching, I think it's okay. I just be prepared that it's not. It's a Korean film. It's a Korean TV show, so it has there's a certain difference. And of course, like I said, it's subtitled. I think.
But we all survived Squid Game. Okay, like we liked Squid Game.
No, I never watched Squid Game, but I know it's very popular. People like it, and you can watch it either. I think you have your choice whether you watch that dubbed or subtitled. The problem I have with subtitles is you end up reading the show rather than watching the show.
No, but you're also listening because, I used to back before anybody knew what Hong Kong films were like. We were getting like bootleg DVDs, and watching, my friend Gene and I. And one of my favorites was The Legend of Fong Sai-yuk. It's an early Jet Li film. It's top notch. And so I had a bootleg that it just went bad. So I went and ordered it on Amazon. I just got it and watched it and thoroughly enjoyed it. But I noticed they had a subtitled, which was how I always used to watch it, and then a dubbed version. So I tried watching the dubbed version for like 5 minutes.
And you noticed differences.
Oh my God, it was horrible.
Yeah, the dub's never that
good. The subtitles are fine because you see what's going on, but you hear the original actors and the voice of the emotion.
What I'm saying,
and the tone and all that. But when it went dubbed, it was like, the one of the main characters is the mom of Jet Li, and she's fantastic, really humorous. But they have her being dubbed by like a 20-year-old British girl. And it just like blows you.
Well, I mean, that certainly takes you out of the environment. But when I'm saying I don't like is because I'm reading what they're saying. I'm not really looking at, what I'm saying? I'm kind of reading the subtitle, and you have to pay attention because usually these subtitles go so fast because they're trying to keep up with normal dial. It's just me. I could be slow. It's very possible. And it's just, what I'm saying? But that's why I don't generally like subtitled
dubbing. Dubbing's okay, but a lot of times they actually deliberately attempt to match words to mouth movement, which sometimes comes out with completely different. They're saying
no, they should never do that.
I don't like that. Just say what is actually being said. I don't care that the mouth doesn't. I don't care.
I hear what Rizzo's saying. The thing is, if you're like watching a TV series, this complaint makes perfect sense. If you're watching a slower moving film, you know, where they're using the language of film to tell you things, where there are just visuals and no dialogue whatsoever, then the subtitles don't get in your way. But I will add this to the discussion with Squid Games. There was an issue because we have a Korean radio show on Sunday evenings on WUSB, run by the Korean students, and they were all over Squid Games when it premiered, and they said the credits, you know, the closed captioning in English was different, markedly different than what was being said in Korean, and it was literally changing the show.
Yeah, that's what I don't.
And I have a feeling with a language like Korean, as opposed to like a European language like German or Italian or something like that, because I think their language is so different from English that there are things that just don't translate well, I think, across the languages. Like
their vibe was someone was doing this on purpose, and it wasn't a translation issue.
But I mean, play with.
I'm sure it's being
Google
sanitized for
Translate.
American audiences. I mean,
Play with Google Translate and put in like a sentence, and then like have it change it to Mandarin or Korean or whatever, and then try to translate that back.
Yeah. It doesn't do that with French either. I've tried a million times. It doesn't.
So I'm going to steal the talking stick here for a second, and one of the things that I recently watched was the Yamato remake, Yamato 2199 and 2202, which was the Comet Empire series. So the Iskandar, the Comet Empire. Yeah. And I watched the original 1975 ones, and you know, I enjoyed them. I tried watching them again not too long ago. It didn't really age well for me. But these I loved. They had so much high Japanese drama. You know, the first season, the Iskandar season, had a little bit of fan service, a little more than what you really want for storytelling. But it was just all really very serious, you know, Japanese big themes, you know, that never came across in the in the 1975 one. But my understanding is it was in the 1975 Japanese version.
Because
but when they dubbed it, they bowdlerized it in many ways, and they did a whole bunch of stuff. So
when that stuff all came over to here, it just got edited. It got completely changed. Robotech got changed around.
That was being adjusted for we got audience.
Yeah, it got changed for the American palate. They didn't think we would like it the way it was. No, we like it fine.
Battle of the Planets all over.
Which is another one of my pet peeves. Like if there's a show in Britain and then we decide to do the American version, like The Office, why? Why do we do that? We already had it in English.
I think we're starting to see less of that.
We have in our house. It's Ghosts. Krista has watched the British version and now is watching the American version. They're markedly, you know, there's similar characters, but
The Office. There's been a ton of them.
Being Human. They did The Office.
Three's Company.
Yeah, Three's Company.
Well,
based off.
There's an American Absolutely Fabulous.
Yes,
it didn't last, but there was one. Yeah,
now that was a mistake.
There really isn't any reason I think anymore to do that, and I think they're probably getting
Americanizing the British shows. We're not
most of them, with the exception of The Office, I can't think of one that took off.
That really took off. Being
in the US, you know, well, Being Human was actually pretty good. But if you watch the British version of Being Human and the American Sci-Fi, they were almost identical.
Max Headroom.
You know,
was Max British?
Yeah.
But they didn't remake it though.
Yeah, they did.
They did.
There was a British version. There was an American version.
There was a British version. I thought there was just the version.
No, there was a British. It started up in England, and they brought some of the cast over.
Interesting.
All right, we're past the halfway point. So let me just super quick say hi to Dennis and Martin and Chris. Oh, Phil's talking, and Phil, you're here, and Kent's here, and let's see who else. I think that's everybody. Hi, and Jeff Rubel. Hi, guys. Thank you all for tuning in tonight.
Yeah. So, Mary Beth, go ahead. What's your next?
Let's my next film. So, super quick recap. We've said Americans like resolutions. Americans like optimism. which Melancholia is a great example of no optimism.
I'm gonna disagree with you on that. One of the things I watch a lot of American films, and they're all dystopian, nasty, grim.
But the hero, the main character, gets his goal done at the end.
It does, but it's always a
I don't
world falling apart.
It's that the story is wrapped. There is a closure to the
There's
film.
a closure,
Whether
yeah.
it's positive or negative, there's a
We
closure.
work for our goals.
But whereas a lot of times in the foreign ones, you'll see they just leave it hanging.
They just leave it hanging. Yeah,
You don't know what happened. Doesn't work out for anybody.
Didn't make it. We don't know. But you know what? My pet peeve was, remember Independence Day when they finally figure out how to take the aliens down, and they're going around the world, and there's a British guy in Iran. He's like, about bloody time. I'm like, whoa, that the Yanks did something. I'm like, whoa, you were gonna do nothing. You're just gonna sit there and let us do all the work. Like, no, stop being so
Leader
American.
of the free world and all that.
I hate that.
That whole.
All right, my next movie. The other thing I wanted to say before I do my next movie is we have to remember the purpose of science fiction. Science fiction, guys, is never, ever, ever, never about the future. It is always about the present. And that's the reason why science fiction around the world is different. It's what people are seeing in their present. It's a mirror being held up to society, to politics, to economics, to socio-political economics, blah, blah, blah. And that's what you're seeing. So that's
in this country, that was done primarily because it was a way to end run the networks and the studio heads saying, you can't say that on TV. You can't do that. It's too political. It's too this. It was by taking the story and putting it in a completely fantastical future world or different planet or aliens. Now you could do whatever you wanted because you weren't talking about the Russians. You weren't talking about the president. You know what I'm saying? It was something else, but you were talking about that. But it was just a way to get around censorship by their own networks.
Yeah. And that is to this day. Science fiction is burgeoning in other countries and around the world. And it to this day can be subversive in the best ways. It's a global phenomenon. I can link you guys to a fantastic article. Hang on, let me do it right now. It's bbc.com, and it's the name of the article is what our science fiction says about us. It was from 2018, but it is still very, very relevant today. All right, hey, I'll put that article up. But first of all, let me do my next movie. I'll do it super fast. I'm going to roll at Troll Hunter. I watched a bunch, guys. We've all seen so much foreign films, but I did Troll Hunter. Troll Hunter is Norwegian. It is steeped in Norwegian culture, like kids' stories, kids' fairy tales.
A lot of their lore.
Yeah, their lore.
It always comes up. If you look at the top 10 foreign science fiction films, that one's always in there.
That one's always in it.
That one's always in there.
It's a found footage. It's like the Blair Witch Project. It's a found footage film. I watched it in Norwegian with subtitles, and they keep finding these bear attacks. That was a bear. It's a bear. That's a bear. And these college kids are like, let's go check this out. Let's film and find out. And they start following this one guy, and they realize it's not a bear. It's trolls. But they drop in all these little extra Norwegian facts about trolls. Like in America, we have Fee Fi Fo Fum and the troll under the bridge. I think
Fee Fi Fo Fum was a giant.
Oh, that's a giant. Sorry, I don't know what we have. In Norway, I guess trolls can smell if you're Christian or believe in God. I thought we had to smell the blood of an Englishman.
Again, that's a giant. That's Jack and the Beanstalk.
Okay, you're right. So we don't have any troll.
We just have the one under the bridge, and you have to say a riddle to get across the bridge, kind of thing.
That's a troll?
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, they drop in all these facts like sunlight makes them turn to stone.
What is your favorite color?
Stuff like that. And it was okay. And you know what? It was a cute little film. Not one guy dies, but not in a horrifically violent way. And I would have highly recommended it until I started researching the cast. And the lead guy is basically a Norwegian MAGA. Like he's MAGA, but Norwegian.
Oh,
and then I was like, that's it. It's a no for me, dog. Like I couldn't believe this movie was number one on so many different lists. As I started looking at lists, it was always Troll Hunter. And then I'm like, what? Why?
See, because again, there's a different cultural what we think is a good movie and what they think is a good movie.
it was.
You
It's
see what I'm saying?
quiet,
There's
it's not
definitely
loud.
cultural differences, even
It's
with
not
Europe.
packed with action because, like I said, it's found footage. It's just
Mhm.
this low key little thing, and they loved it. It's just this low key.
Well, I mean, look at how popular Blair Witch Project was. And it was like gives you a
That thing
headache.
was big in the day.
It was big, and all it does is give you a
Yeah.
headache.
It did. It was big, but you know why? Because it was so cheap and it was so effective.
Well, it was
Yeah.
effective,
Paranormal
and I think
Activity.
people thought it was
It's
real.
the, it's the Roger Corman school, you know. Make your
Absolutely.
movie effective, make it about something, and you know, use what you got.
It made me nauseous. It was just too much.
Sure. Well, you know what made
Like
you know,
Troll
you know
Hunter,
what's really a nauseous one is I Am Legend. They did a lot of the cinema verite
Oh,
thing, and I saw that on an IMAX screen.
Yeah. Oh God.
Mm.
I think one of the first
I'm
films
done.
I
You can
saw
go
where
somebody
they
else.
started doing that point of view, moving like just the camera is just part of the action was The Rock with Sean Connery and it was the one of The Rock being Alcatraz, and there was these car chases, and you couldn't tell what the hell was going on in the car chase.
Was that a
Because
Michael
the
Bay
camera was
movie?
just like vibrating around like it was in the
Michael
car.
Bay does that a lot.
Yeah,
too.
it was. So that was the first time I saw that in a film, and I was like, they need to stop this. I want to go back to like Bullet.
But they made the reboot of Battlestar Galactica that made that show
But that worked.
explode. It was
That worked,
great
and-
when they did that. It took a while for me to
Worked
get used
so
to it.
well on that
Yes.
show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As Doug Drexler would tell you, the idea that there was that the camera didn't know, like normally, you know, the camera
wasn't an
knows when the
omniscient
action's gonna
camera.
happen. But
Yeah,
in this one, the
wasn't
camera's like it's there and it doesn't know that the battle, so it does that. Oh, it's happening over
But
here.
it worked to
zoom
good
over to
effect in Battlestar. It worked to bad effect in Blair Witch.
Yeah.
Well, I
But
think
you see that style of you know, draw your attention type camera making showing up in even NASA videos when they were landing one of the rovers on Mars. They had a previs of what it would be like coming into the entry interface and
It did
going
jump.
through, and it was that same sort of camera thing where you just, oh, well, that's happening, oh, let's look,
Crash
you
zoom.
know.
Yeah.
I noticed that right away.
They were doing it on something. Oh, they were doing it on something Star Wars. Mandalorian. I think they were doing that.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Basically, they were doing crash zooms for some of the fights. I was like, "What are you?"
Yeah, I mean,
What's Battlestar?
it's like any other effect. If it's done correctly and not overused,
Sure.
it works. You know, it's like a lens flare.
Or the pan zoom where you're or the dolly zoom.
They had lens flares in Picard, and no one complained the way
Well,
they
I'm
do
saying
about
because
JJ.
there's been a lot of movies with lens flare, and then there was
JJ
Star
made it
Trek
normal.
2009, and
Okay, I'm done with Troll Hunter. You can move
we
on.
all hate.
Well, we don't have anything popping into our heads at the moment.
Do
Wait.
Fantastic Planet because I'll
Wait.
back you up at how weird that thing was.
No, I just want to ask about what you thought about Fantastic Planet, right?
Oh,
Is that what
yes.
it's called? 'Cause we like put that
What
on
were
one
they
night, but we
saying?
couldn't make it through it.
Were we pets or were we vermin? And it wasn't us. Like, what were they saying exactly?
Yeah,
It left. It
That's
was
a
all
weird
vague.
film. That
we
was
watched that as a family and were horrified.
What was it actually saying?
Let's watch a cartoon, guys.
We made it to the end.
That's the one. Did you?
First
That's
we were
all in
pets,
French,
then we
right?
were
That's the French one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
She
Yeah, I
didn't
know the
seem
one
to
you're
care.
talking about.
Tia didn't even seem to care that her little pet was showing fairly large signs of intelligence.
Yeah,
That, she didn't care.
yeah,
It was learning from her head.
yeah, yeah. Her little head thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
She didn't. And then next thing you know, like, there's too many of them over there in that le pack. Yeah, throw the whatever down the pack. Okay, let's go exterminate them.
Yeah, it was a strange.
And then what
not
happened
one of
at the
my-
end?
Yeah,
What
no,
actually
I
happened
remember
at the
seeing it
end?
years and years and years
We
ago.
didn't. We never made it to the end. We made it about 3/4 of the way through, and we're like, "Oh, we're done."
So the,
It's
the
not
ohms,
one that
the
I would
ohms,
recommend.
Which
That-
the
that's
word
for
in
sure.
French for man is l'homme, L''homme, l'homme. So we would call ohms. So the men, get a spaceship and they take 2 spaceships to some other planet. Oh, and then they find out that the tall aliens were doing something on that planet too, and they're like, no, we're out. So they go back, and then I don't remember what happened after that. We settled They just decided to coexist with us because they realized we were intelligent. Oh, I know. They were gonna kill us, and then we attacked Gulliver style. Remember all the little Putians like attacked Gulliver and brought him down? We did that and brought one down and killed him, and they were like, they were all gaspy. And I keep saying we. I assume it's men.
We're kind of reminded me of, and not in a good way. I mean,
it's weird.
Was Yellow Submarine.
Oh yeah.
It had kind of that vibe.
Submarine made more
Yellow
sense.
Submarine was way better. Don't get me wrong. I'm not.
This was right in between like heavy metal and.
Yeah, there's definitely a heavy metal.
Earlier than heavy metal, but yeah.
Oh, my. It kind of had a weird.
I believe.
But yeah, it was that same sort of French style of animation or cartoon, comic.
Now that I actually look at the production cast, do you think the same guys from heavy metal were involved?
Possibly. I mean,
feel to it.
Mobius, right?
Mobius probably was in it. Let's.
Well, Mobius, Mobius was did Jodorowsky's Dune. They brought him in for visualization on that.
Well,
that's the film.
Fifth Element. I mean.
Yeah. All right, so Jodorowsky's Dune is the foreign film I would have liked to see.
Yeah, we should have done that one.
Yeah. Well, no, because it was never made.
Oh, it never. Oh, okay. No, it was made. Dave, I need to give you a link. There's a documentary on that thing.
There's a documentary. I've seen the documentary, and
it exists in
book
form.
Yeah, and the book made its way around Hollywood, which is why the same images show up in Alien and in Star Wars and all, because everybody looked at this and said, "Wow, that's something." All
right, I'm looking at directed by René Laloux.
So Mary Beth, why don't you open it up to the attending crowd and see if they have any suggestions?
I didn't get to Phil yet.
Yeah, we'll get to Phil, and then we will open it up to the attending crowd.
We'll give you.
You
guys can always chat, and we can. I am reading the chat, guys. So Phil.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dave and Emma. Are you guys?
Yeah, we're good.
You're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dave, I would suggest a more wholesome French fantasy or science fiction film would be The Little Prince. And then no one will pass out in terror from that. It's a fantasy thing. I had it on my list of just noteworthy foreign films.
That's one of the ones you see in school when you're a little kid.
Yeah. But I mean, the other two I had in my best of, and I'm going to mostly talk about Mirai, but I also love the Korean film The Host, which is a monster movie, which I highly recommend, by the guy who did Snowpiercer. The thing with Mirai, which is a Japanese anime, a modern anime, and The Host is they're both films about family. So with The Host, it's the impact of this horrible monster that rises out of pollution or something and takes away a little girl from a Korean family, and there's all these family dynamics going on, and the fact that the government will not help them. They literally have to. They're under lock and key, and they have to break out to go rescue this middle school age girl from the monster, and all the different hoops they had to jump through, and it paints a really bleak picture of. You want to talk about, how they view us. It really paints a bleak picture of the Americans. Whereas you're watching the news coverage of the monster attacking and killing people, and the only person who's making the news is the one American soldier who got killed during the attack. None of the hundreds of Korean people. So highly recommended The Host. But I mostly want to talk about, and there's tons of anime out there. I mean, you could spend like 10 weeks just talking about Miyazaki by itself,
Yes, and
but I put that on its side because basically that's Disney now. Disney has been releasing it and dubbing it beautifully. But Mirai, Academy Award nominated Japanese modern anime film about a 4-year-old boy who gets a baby sister, and how because he's having all these sibling rivalry problems and he's having all these problems, his teenage sister comes through time to visit him, to tell him not to hit her in the head with his toy train set anymore, which he keeps doing. And they go through this beautiful history of this family and how they're all connected. And he goes back to his great great grandfather as they're traveling through time and stuff. And it's really hard for me to describe it properly in the few minutes we have left here. But it is on Netflix through June 1st. If you still subscribe to Netflix, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend the closed caption version. Because there's enough film language in it. There's enough things in this film where you just have to visually, it's telling you things. It's not just talking it at you. It's telling you things through the language of film. And it's all about family and how it's connected through time. And I'm not sure if it's a fantasy where he's literally traveling through these other points in time or if he's hallucinating or dreaming, so that's never made clear to me, but it's an absolutely stunningly beautifully made film. Dave, perfect for the whole family. Watch it through the end. It is a little scary at the end when he ends up in the train station. That gets to be a little frightening, but it is no Fantastic Planet. I tell you, the greatest part was where the family dog starts talking to the little boy and said, I was here first, and then they stopped loving me and loved you. So get used to it when the little sister comes. So it's just stuff like this whole dynamic. It's absolutely beautiful. Whereas the mom and dad also are enough representation when they're talking to each other. There's a lot of depth of story there where you're really attached to all the characters. And there's 6 of them, or 5 of them. And it's just wonderful. Go see Mirai, spelled Mirai, Mirai. On Netflix. They're going to send me a check at the end of this video.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry.
You brought a couple of things to my head. First, though, with Ghibli, not everything's been Disneyfied because there's still Pompoko, which, if you've never seen it, woo!
Yeah. Ghibli is, you got to really dig into some of his stuff. Yeah.
Pompoko is quite a film, and but as far as the anime type stuff goes, one thing that just popped in my head when you were talking about the time travel and such was Your Name.
Your Name, yeah.
Your Name is
yes, beautiful film.
Oh,
this is
better. Sort of science fiction, sort of a nice relationship story, a beautiful film, just top notch all around.
Yeah. Well, again, and contrasting to that. Like my other TV show I was watching was Dark, which is German, which is also time travel based, multi-universe, a lot of paradoxes, all that kind of thing, but incredibly slow, at least for my taste. I've said it on the show. It's the perfect cure for insomnia because many times we were watching the way the music is, long pauses in somebody asks somebody a question and they just stare at them and you're like, answer him. Why are you just staring at that kind of thing? And it was just like, but the way the music was, it would put me to sleep like almost instantly. So I missed a lot of it because I was, dozing off. But it's very popular on Netflix. It was very highly rated, which is why I watched it. It went 3 seasons. They came out with another film or show, I should say, called 1899, which is like a ghost ship.
Oh, yeah.
And it tanked, apparently. It didn't even get picked up for a second season. And it was the same people. So if you want to give Dark, I watched Dark. I think you can watch Dark in either dubbed or subtitles. I did watch the dubbed version. It was a little awkward. But again, I think the first season isn't bad, but it gets weirder and weirder. And I don't know, I was having trouble because they're jumping around in time and in universes. There's like a mirror universe thing going on. So it's a little hard, especially if you're dozing off, to follow sometimes what in the heck is going on. So, but again, I felt it was a cultural difference. I just think it was maybe in German, audiences were finding this is more normal. Whereas I'm like, we were watching the show, it was like an hour episode. And we're like, you realize nothing happened in the first 45 minutes of this episode. Literally nothing happened.
Like that too.
Nothing happened that moved the story forward until like the last 15 minutes.
It is American shows like that too.
It's like, what was all that?
I'm looking at you, Lost.
So anyway, that's
I
all I'm
love
going to say
that.
about
Well, Lost, though, I have to say, is one of the few things that that sucked me in because I couldn't predict
Yes.
where they were going with the story.
You
Because I
couldn't
know
predict.
all the tropes, and I
You're
can
like,
spot them like inside 30 seconds. I'm like, oh yeah, they're going here.
What's Dharma? What's this? Yeah, we spent so much time trying to figure it out, and then at the end we were like, they never told us what the smoke monster.
I
was.
watched that show for the flashbacks. That's all I cared about was everybody's backstory. I loved it. Everybody had a great backstory. So what if they're on this weird island that could be purgatory or whatever? You know, just wanted to know what happened to all of them prior. And they had Nick Tate in it. So there you go.
Ken is saying Ragnarok is a Norwegian Danish series about young Thor. There's a couple of Viking shows out there,
by the way.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with the Marvel Ragnarok.
Not to be confused with the Marvel one. There's a couple of Viking shows out there, and one of them is a dark comedy that I really enjoy. I think it was only 2 seasons, and I had mad props for them because that crew would film a scene in Norwegian or Danish, whatever they were speaking, and then turn around and film the exact same scene again in English.
And Annette loved that show. Annette was watching it.
It was a dark comedy. They had their little slaves, the little British slaves, and it was funny but horrible all at the same time. I'll try to find the name. It wasn't called Vikings. It might have been called Northmen. I'm not sure. Maybe it's the other way around.
I think I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah. I put up 2 links, guys. I put up a link to that BBC.com article if you want to read it, what our science fiction says about us. And it's just a reminder that science fiction is not about the future. And the other link I put up was to a YouTube video called Why Can't Science Fiction Writers Imagine Alternatives to Capitalist Societies or any of our known trope societies? If you look at societies or structure of societies in science fiction, it's all something we've already known and seen before. It's always the big 3: capitalism, socialism, communism, and combinations thereof to make it sufficiently evil, with people on top wanting to stay in power. We've yet to invent a new way of being. So that's kind of interesting. Maybe the Borg, but even they have a queen, it's like,
which they
have less levels. They just have queen and everybody else.
But yeah.
But anyway, worth a watch. Check it out.
So we're past the hour. So anybody last thoughts on any of this? I know we could really go on and on and on.
I just want to throw out I won't pontificate, but I want to throw out a quick list of movies that were foreign-based movies that affected film as a whole, and the quick list is The Never-Ending Story, The Fifth Element, Fantastic Planet, which we've mentioned, The Little Prince, which you mentioned, Solaris, the original Russian Solaris, Metropolis, of course, we should
mention Metropolis,
huge, and Akira, the classic anime. Those are the big ones.
You know what? That's a great list. That's a great list. You hit on some really classic ones there.
And I would bang my head against the wall if I did not mention the original film, What We Do in the Shadows, which I love.
Which is now a TV series, which you should check out. But the original has Taika Waititi and that crowd, and it is hilarious. If you're down for like kind of dark vampire comedy.
It's the Munsters on crack.
Dave, Emma, do you have any last thoughts?
Nothing popping ahead.
Nothing popping.
I speak my thoughts when they pop into my head.
That's okay. And Mary Beth,
No, it's all good. Thank you. Thank you guys for coming to watch, and everyone get out there and watch some more international sci-fi because it does. You do every now and again hit on one that kind of like makes you think and sort of opens your eyes and makes you go, oh.
I definitely encourage it, even if you don't end up enjoying it. It certainly gives you a window into other cultures.
It gives you a window into other cultures and what their needs and problems are.
And I think, again, since we always seem to be on such an island on this planet, this island Earth, little pun
this
there.
Island America,
Island America, that I think it is important that we kind of learn what's going on elsewhere. All right, what does Roy got going on?
I have no idea. I don't know. Is he home from his trip?
I actually saw a post. I think he's off this week.
Is he off this week?
I think he is. I think he's not on this week.
That means we can go straight to you, Phil. What do you got?
What do you got going on?
I'm crazy this week. Tomorrow I start off the day engineering for my good buddy Bill McNulty at 11 o'clock. And then my show, Captain Phil's Planet, comes on at 3 p.m. with an interview with Overforward, a Minnesota-based progressive rock fusion band. Mary Beth will be joining me for that. Mary Beth will also, and Rizzo, if you're around, you can join us too. We're going to be promoting Trek Conderoga. At some point after that, I'd like to play a segment from the Patrick Reed Johnson interview that you guys did. So I'm trying to see if I have space to play one segment. I was thinking about when he first visited ILM, that story, because we're close to May 25th. And then I have Michael Schilling from Shore Leave phoning in at 4:30. So that's my show. Then I'm filling in for Chris Laporta at 8 o'clock.
You're on the radio all
so
day.
I'm literally programming the radio from 11 a.m. until 10 o'clock at night tomorrow. So yes.
Whoa,
So if you're
12
listening to
solid hours
WSB, you're going to get sick of Phil.
Yes. Well, actually, in my defense, about 60% of that is pre-recorded, not just run from here, not me sitting in front of the microphone.
WUSB Stony Brook. Wow.
Remember,
Wow,
you guys
Stony
can
Brook.
always get it on the Amazon devices. You just ask to play WUSB radio.
Yes, just ask her. Say her name and tell her you want to
Yeah.
listen to WUSB
So it's
Stony
kind of
Brook.
neat that
If it's me, turn it up loud. It'll scare the cats.
I'm sure on the Google, if you have the Google
No, you can
devices,
stream it. If you go to their website, there's a button
and
up
you
in
can
the top.
play right. You can play right from the website as well. So.
WSB.FM or whatever. Yeah.
I don't know what we're doing next week, so if you have any
Next week is May
suggestions-
24th, which is the day before May 25.
Yeah, I
So
think
why don't
we feel like we need to do some Star Warsy stuff again,
feel
even though
like
we
we
just
need to
did
do some
Mando.
Star
I don't
Wars.
know. I feel like because May 25th is really the Orthodox holiday.
May 25th is yours, but it's the Eve. It's Star Wars
It's
Eve.
Eve, Star Wars Eve. Yeah, so I don't
We
know.
should
We'll come
celebrate.
up with something. Yeah, we'll
We can have a whole hour on Han Shot First.
on shot first.
You could do an
Yeah.
entire hour on what it was like to line up for
Huh.
hours to see Star Wars
Yeah,
in 1977.
I was sick, so I don't know.
I was there. Yeah, I don't remember. We didn't have to wait online. I don't remember that because I remember I didn't see it when it first. I didn't see it like May. I think I didn't see it till
It
like
came
it
out
was
and
out
then
a
came out
couple
again,
weeks.
so it,
Yeah, it was already out a couple weeks when I finally
This guy saw it.
So,
I was there. Were
because
you
you're
there,
old,
Dave?
so-
Did you see
I
it
was
when-
only.
did you see
I
it
was.
when-
That summer, we used to ride our bike down to the Boulevard Mall. Every day or so and watch it.
Oh, Chris.
$1.50 matinee.
Oh, nice.
Sit in
Those
the
are
front
the
row
days,
center, looking up.
Those were the
Because you
days.
get that first.
Chris
Enjoy
LaRoche
that.
wants favorite comedy in Star Trek episodes, excluding Lower Decks. Just the episode, just like Next Gen, TOS, probably.
Great topic.
That's
Yeah,
the
maybe-
that's
maybe
like a whole
we'll-
show
maybe
right
we'll
there.
do that
Funny
one,
moments
Chris.
in Star Trek.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that one. So
Bill
anyway,
says he's in range of WUSB. Bill, you're down near the Long Island area. I guess you are. Yeah.
Suffolk County, and South Shore, Connecticut. Our new transmitter is going in a few weeks, but Frank does things and he's able to bounce the signal because we're at 25% power right now. But he's able to make it work, so I can pick it up when I'm on Long Island around exit 50 on the
Oh,
expressway.
Bill is on Long Island.
It's on Long Island. There you go. That's why.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did not know that's where you were, Bill. Cool.
So, okay, well, we'll come up with something. We always leave you guys in suspense to find out what will be our show for next time.
Nice.
Star Trek 5.
So, I want to thank Phil. I want to thank Dave and Emma, and of course, Mary Beth for coming on and talking about us. It's always great fun to have these kind of topics. I think it's a good discussion. We could have gone on and on about this, but we will see you guys next week with something. If not, watch Phil, listen to Phil rather. In the meantime, and of course, always live long and prosper. And we'll see you guys. Take care. Good night.